Welcome to the Jets UK podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andres Groves. I'm joined by my co-host, David Wyatt-Hupton. David, how are you doing today?
Doing good. I'm doing good. It's a new week. New England's in the background. Zach's back to his pinnacle. So all our hopes resting on him. I've forgotten about those 4 interceptions already.
Yeah.
So ready to go. Ready for another game.
Yeah, I did my best to watch some of those late throws to Braxton Berrios and Jeff Smith, which were pretty good actually. And just remind myself of what he can do when he's not kind of just throwing the game away before it's even started, you know. But I think it's time. I mean, it's a learning experience for everyone. It's a learning experience for the coaching staff in terms of how to manage a kid who's kind of losing control within a game setting. You know, I think for everyone it's a learning experience, especially for Zach. So hopefully, and he's, you know, everything we've been told, he doesn't make the same mistakes. He learns from it. You know, he likes to correct things that have gone wrong. So obviously, there's a lot that's gone wrong, and so hopefully, he takes, you know, steps in the right direction. I guess another a difficult opponent in terms of the defense, and a good play caller in Fangio.
Yeah, I mean it's so unlucky for Zach to come off a week against Bill Belichick and go straight into a week against Fangio, because he's a younger version. But he's one of the best defensive minds in the NFL. So it's not going to get any easier. You know, Denver have a couple of guys out, but they still have Von Miller, and when you've got Von Miller, one of the premier, if not the premier pass rusher in the NFL, it's going to be difficult again for Zach this week. But it's going to be really interesting to see how he's developed, how he's learned from those mistakes last week. Yeah. Does he adapt? Does he make, you know, better decisions with the football? Keeps the chains moving. It's just going to be a really interesting game. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Zach responds.
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be. I'm not asking him to play the cleanest game. I know the setting, being, you know, on the road in Denver against that defense in only your third game. I'm expecting that there's going to be a mistake here. It's just, can we avoid the complete meltdown that we had on last Sunday? You know, that's what it is. Can we keep things more like the Carolina game, where there was the pick, but there was also a lot of good play, and we were able to kind of get the offense moving somewhat as well. So I think it's obviously up to the other players who did step up last week. You know, the offensive line did play better. If they can keep that up and keep him protected, and he does better, then maybe we have a shot at, you know, keeping it close or even pull off the upset. So it's an interesting game for sure, and another great test, I guess. I think it probably gets easier as we get on in terms of the defense he faces after this one. But it's going to be a good test for him to bounce back from last Sunday. In terms of news, there's not really much news to talk about. We were talking before the pod about the BJ Goodson one. You know, he retiring at, you know, coming in, signing, playing a few snaps on special teams and then retiring. So it's kind of weird when that happens, right?
Yeah, it's really strange, especially when he's only 28. If kind of a 34-year-old does that, and they kind of think, you know, I'm part of a rebuild here, and I just don't have the appetite for it, I don't have the energy for it, you kind of understand that. A 28-year-old coming in, playing a few snaps, and then deciding to give it up, that's a little bit stranger. But like I was kind of saying to you before we came on, if his heart's not in it, then let someone else have your spot. Let a youngster have your spot, who's dying to play even special team snaps, who are, you know, will break down the door just to get 5 snaps on specials to try and stand out. So, you know, it's not really big news, but it was interesting to see that he decided to hang him up. I don't think he's had any major injury concerns in his career, not that I can remember. When we signed him, I remember looking through, he had a few niggles, obviously most NFL players do. But there was no major ACL tears or any real massive issues with concussions, and so yeah, I don't think we've heard from him why he's done that yet, have we? I don't think he's posted
I haven't heard anything from that. No,
I haven't seen anything.
No, and I guess it's the other thing is obviously Mackay had his surgery, it went well, so you know, we wish him a speedy recovery, and obviously we'll see how long that takes for him to get back to full strength and playing. Getting back out there, it's going to be a bit of a road ahead of him, but you know, that's the first step that he's done. That went well, and
I mean, Mackay came out with a fire, didn't he? He came out with some fire. I'm a little bit worried about him being laid up, not being able to do much, because he came out with some fire fingers to some Jets fans who were tweeting him about his weight and you know, bits and pieces.
Yeah.
I never really understood why fans do that to their own players, but There you go. But he's certainly not. He said he finds it funny. It's entertainment to him. So have your
He likes
fun.
the
Yeah,
banter.
call these
He
guys
was even
out.
calling out
He
Rich,
likes the
right? When
banter.
Rich Shamini said,
Yeah.
he's like, he goes, he said, he's like, he gets his surgery done. He goes, yeah, no, no dir, basically. Like, it's really obvious from the
Because he
picture.
posted a
Yeah,
picture of
because he
him
posted
surgery, didn't he? And then Rich has gone, guy gets his surgery done. And he's like,
it.
obviously.
Yeah.
So
It's-
I like a player
No,
with a
he's
bit of
got a
humour. I
character
like it.
to him, Mackay. And so, like I said,
Yeah.
hopefully, it's just such a shame we won't be able to see him, in Wembley, in Tottenham. Yeah, it's, hopefully he can get back at the end of the season and kind of see out the rest of the season in good health. So we wish him a speedy recovery with that. I guess the other issue, the ongoing story with Denzel Mims, it's kind of an ongoing story. I guess the way you look at it is that if they wanted all three positions, learnt by him, that would be because we want you as a starter. We want you, have you out there where we can move you around and be, we can move people around. But if that, he should be him being inactive. It's just completely pointless because he's a guy who can come in and make a difference, even if it's just for a few plays. Like him not starting is understandable. Him not being, being inactive is not understandable at all.
No, I mean, I want to believe the coaching staff. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to start kind of calling them out for what they're saying. I just get a feeling with Denzel it's attitude.
Hmm.
You just get that just from what Corey said in the off season, and like you said, a little bit of what they're saying doesn't really add up. They don't want to necessarily come out and say he's got a bad attitude or anything like that because that's killing his trade value and it's also just really putting him down
Mm.
in the eyes of the fans and in the eyes of his teammates as well. Who it's just a difficult one. There's something more there than we know about. I think I'm pretty confident with that there's something behind that
Yeah.
because I kind of agree with quite a majority of the fan base who say if you've got a player who's this tall, this fast, this good in terms of contested catches, and you've got a young quarterback, you will find a role for him. And Denzel has the talent that you could find a role for. So if you're trying to win, if you're trying to grow this team, and Denzel might be a confidence guy, he might be a guy who needs to perform to really get his head in the game. Maybe that's a part of his attitude and his kind of persona. So to just say he's not going to play unless he learns all three positions and is better than the top three guys just seems a bit off for me. I know Jeff Smith's a special teamer, but if Jeff Smith can get in at the end of the game for a 35-yard completion, Denzel Mims can do exactly the same. Like find a role for him. I can't remember. I retweeted a quote and I can't remember what it was, but it was from someone saying good coaches coach to their players' talents.
Yeah, it's
And I
basically
just feel like
it's something we generally
you know
know, right? You got the players, you got the talent
exactly.
in the building. You got to find a way to maximize their strengths and not trying to change them into your scheme. And I don't even think he's not. It's definitely more than that because I don't think his skill set is drastically different from say Corey Davis. I think there's slight differences that make Corey Davis maybe even better scheme fit, whatever that means. But I still think he's a player that in certain packages in certain ways you can get him out there. And I just feel that we're not in a position to be putting people in the doghouse right now. And I do think that, like I said, the doghouse can be like you're not going to have as many snaps because we don't feel ready. But to have him inactive when if we're in a crucial game situation, you would want his skill set out there. Like I say, if we're in the end zone, if we're in the red zone, sorry, trying to get into the end zone for a winning, game winning touchdown, having someone like Denzel Mims who could get up there. If you were putting a fade to the corner, anything like that, having someone like that in that opportunity, it's useful to have him on your game day squad. I just not having him, I just feel it's kind of like cutting your nose to spite your face. It's just one of those things. It's like I just don't understand why it's such drastic. So, like I said, it must be a personality issue, like a trait. That he's not responding well in training. But I don't. I just feel that it's not helping the overall team in terms of we need as many good players as possible. We just can't afford to be having a healthy scratch with a player of his quality. I just don't. I agree that you have to find ways to kind of teach them to have a better attitude. But also, I think there's ways of doing that by giving them a lower snap count when they would get more, but still have them in case you need them for that situation, because it's a detriment to the rest of the team to have a player that good and not have him available when they could use him for an important situation. So yeah, it's just one of those things that's going to keep on rocking on until it doesn't. I guess. Do you think that he could be a trade candidate?
I mean, yes, it has to be a consideration if the team believe that he has got an attitude problem and they're not going to be able to get over that. They've just signed Corey Davis, they've got Elijah Moore, Keelan Cole, they've got James McCarthy. They've got plenty of receivers if they need to. I mean, giving up on a second year player like Denzel Mims with his talent, though, I mean that's a decision that will come back and bite you. That
Yeah.
if he's to such a point where you cannot envision a future where he is going to be productive and a good teammate, then you kind of have to trade him and try and get as much as you possibly can. But that's not something that I've heard about Denzel
No.
Mims historically. So that's what's so interesting about this. In college, he wasn't known as a bad attitude player or someone who had issues with authority or whatever it is.
And even
that he's
here,
having issues with.
in the dealings you see like that he has with people when he speaks, he doesn't seem like someone who is a problem. In terms of a distraction, a locker room cancer kind of guy who's really kind of detriment to the team. Maybe he's just his work ethic isn't as strong, which I think eventually could come back to bite him in terms of long-term contract and staying with the team. But I just a player of his talent, I just think you have to try and to unlock it, and I just feel that maybe just it was the one-off saying you're not going to play there, and it's going to be the ultimate kind of punishment. But I saw like some beat reporters were putting out there that he's like on the drills, he's actually taking his reps behind the two practice squad receivers. So just to kind of even be more in the doghouse. I just don't know what's happening. I don't know if it's kind of their first decisions there. He doesn't like it, then they make it worse. He doesn't like it, then they get it worse. It just kind of gets worse and worse and worse. Like when you're punishing a child and
snowball.
Yeah, snowball effect. When you're punishing a child and they say, okay, that's 5 minutes. Okay, that's 10 minutes. That's 15 minutes. It's kind of one of those situations. I don't know, but I don't know. I just feel that we need as many players out there. And you saw what happened in week one. He's obviously he gets open, and I do feel that in some moments when Zach needs to throw it up there, he could be the difference between getting that ball a reception or even it being an interception. I just think he's that good in contested catches that, I think he makes a difference in certain games and certain situations. So we'll see what Sunday brings. We'll see his name on the inactive list again, and we'll all kick up again on Sunday before kickoff, won't we?
Well, yeah, the indication is that he's going to be inactive again. I think that's the rumor that's going around at the minute,
okay.
which it just seems pointless to me that rumor can go around on a Wednesday, and obviously it's a rumor, so it's not been confirmed, and it's not something that the coaches have actually come out and said in the press conferences. But those rumors tend to be pretty accurate most of the time. So if you're already calling him an inactive at Wednesday lunchtime, basically at the day of the install for the offense, then you're not really giving him an opportunity, and that's kind of my issue. Is LaFleur kind of said he had his best week of practice before week one. With receivers down, he got rewarded with 5 snaps. You kind of like that just doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. But we won't know the true extent of what's going on. He could be causing all kinds of issues, and we don't see it, and the coaches don't want to bring it up. But the longer this goes on, the more the questions are going to come up, and the less he doesn't know 3 positions is going to be an acceptable answer, because at the end of the day, if we're losing football games and we're down in the red zone and we're running it 3 times in a row, and you've got a 6'5" receiver there, who you put 6'5" receiver next to Corey Davis, there's not too many teams that are going to be able to handle that. So it's an interesting one. It's one to watch for sure. But I'm hoping he's going to be active on Sunday. Let's give him an opportunity. Let's try and get him ingrained. And like I say, maybe that's the snowball effect you want. He makes a good play. Then next week he makes a couple of good plays, and then he starts getting back into it a little bit.
Yeah.
But, who knows? We're in the dark.
We are in the dark, and like I said, we'll just have to see what Sunday brings to get to the next chapter of this story. But I think that kind of wraps up the kind of semi-news that we had to talk about this week. It's been quite a quiet week, thankfully, as we head towards the game in Denver. So I think with that, we'll head over to our interview with Tom from UK Denver Broncos. Okay, so we're joined by Tom from UK Denver Broncos, who will give us a bit more of an expert view on the team that we've got this Sunday. So Tom, thanks for jumping on the pod.
Well, thanks for having me. Hopefully you're all doing well and having a good week, but hopefully it don't carry on till Sunday.
Yeah, well, we're kind of recovering from Sunday. It was a bit rough. I think we kind of dust ourselves off a little bit now, and we're looking at some of the positives from the performance, which they were. I think it was masked by the craziness of the 4 interceptions, but yeah, we're looking forward to Denver, and it's another a good opponent to see where we're at in terms of these young players testing their mettle in a a tough spot going across the country to Mile High in difficult conditions. So yeah, looking forward to it. Before we jump into the questions about the team and all that, just your history with the team. I always like to ask about the kind of history of the fans, UK fans, where they found their team. How did you become a Broncos fan? When was it?
Yeah, so it was 2012. I've no idea why, because I was about 13, but I was watching a Monday night football game. Broncos were playing the Falcons. I think it was first game of the season, or it was early on in the season anyway. I think the Broncos ended up losing that game, but for some reason unknown to me still to this day, I decided I quite liked what they were doing, and I stuck with them ever since as I got more and more into the NFL, and fortunately I grew into the NFL at a time when the Broncos were doing pretty well with Peyton Manning just coming in.
Mm-hmm. Good time to jump on.
It's not quite been the same since he left.
No.
But yeah, those first 4 years were pretty fun, at least. Anyway.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's a pretty fun run up from when you joined to actually when they actually ended up winning the Super Bowl. You had a little run up in there, and then obviously it's not been great. I mean, you guys have got one of the longest playoff droughts. I think you guys are second to us. We've got a 10-year drought, and you guys got a 6-year drought, if I'm not mistaken, or something along the line. So yeah,
5.
I think,
okay, well, is it 16? Yeah,
yeah.
5,
So it's up there
yeah.
though in terms of some of the droughts. But yeah, the Jets kind of completely now with the Browns getting in last year. I think there was another team. I think it was the Bucks.
The Panthers must be. Have they been back since the same Super Bowl?
I think the Panthers have been. I think a few years ago. Maybe they're up there as well. They're up there as well. I think the Cardinals as well. But yeah, definitely. Our teams have got some kind of to get back to some glory days for sure. And I do like what the Broncos have been doing. I really like some of the elements of the team in terms of overall. If you can get a decent the quarterback position in there. I know you had Teddy come in, obviously with and then you got Drew Lock. What was your feelings about Teddy coming in? Were you comfortable with him taking over? Did you want him taking over? Did you want Drew Lock to win the job? How did you feel about that in the off season?
I think in the off season, kind of looking at this team with some of the drama that was going on elsewhere in the league, it was if you put Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers on this team, it's a Super Bowl contender. Yeah. There were times when it looked like one of those players could be coming to Denver. Obviously, Deshaun Watson's offseason went in a very different direction. I wouldn't go anywhere near him now if I was an NFL GM.
Yeah.
So, I think when all that happened, the Broncos had to make a move at the quarterback position. If for nothing else, Drew Lock hadn't stayed healthy for 16 games a year in his first 2 years. So, bringing in Teddy was a sensible decision to make. I think most Broncos fans wanted Drew Lock to be the starter because he had that long-term upside, of what he could be. Obviously, if he was what he was in his last year, then, that wasn't going to do the job. But it was more dreaming of having that answer, someone who could be there long-term. But I think Teddy's surprised everyone with what he's put on the field so far, and 2 weeks in, it looks pretty obvious that the Broncos have made the right decision.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a guy that just distributes the ball to, a very talented wide receiver core that you've got. Obviously, you're down Jerry Jeudy, unfortunately, but you've still got some good guys back there. Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick as well, and KJ Hamler. So, I think it's a very good receiving unit you guys got, and a lot of weapons for Teddy just to get the ball out to them, let them do do the job, right? You've got two good running backs. So I think it's just allow him to manage the game. Don't lose the game. I think you've got great defense. It's just a format. It's just it makes sense the way him joining there from my point of view, from an outsider, it just made sense in terms of if you can't get a top-notch player like a Rodgers coming over or something like that, someone like Teddy Bridgewater actually works pretty well, like he did with the Panthers, where get the ball out to the weapons, and I think it works pretty well. So the first 2 weeks you've had obviously the Giants, the Jags, pretty easy teams. I would say the Jets are going to be a step up. I would hope. I think we are. If we put it together, we will be. But it's been pretty easy. How you feel in terms of the team? Has there been any surprises? Has there been anything maybe that you thought would be better that hasn't been quite as good? I know you guys have been pretty good overall. So has there anything been like that showed up in the first few weeks?
I mean, you talk about Teddy as the game manager, and I think, that's what we all expected, but I think he's been more than that so far. I think he's attempted the most deep passes of any quarterback in the NFL so far, which has surprised everyone, and, his willingness to throw downfield has definitely been a surprise. Teams seem to have sold out to stop the run against us quite a bit in these opening two games, which has meant that Teddy's had to put it on his arm, and, we weren't sure if he could do that, but so far he has, and hopefully, maybe the Jets and we've got the Ravens coming up. You'll take note of that, and Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams may be able to have even more joy because Teddy's becoming a viable way to actually win the game so far. And we have played two poor teams, but we've looked a lot better than them, and I think the margins have flattered both teams. The Giants scored a garbage touchdown. It was 27-7 for almost up until the last couple of minutes, and then the Jags, we give up a kickoff return touchdown, and then which the defense has given up 3 touchdowns through 2 games, which has been as expected. And then obviously we were driving, we'd have scored another touchdown there. If we weren't just kneeling the game out. We've moved the ball at will pretty much, bar the first quarter and a half on Sunday. So, being surprised at how successful Teddy has been.
Yeah, it's been really good to see how he fit in, and he's got off to a really good start there. Has there any, as you look throughout the team, do you see any kind of weaknesses that you think are a little bit concerning? Maybe any kind of places where an opponent could attack you?
I think with Josie Jewell, he's out for the season now. There's question marks at inside linebacker. Justin Stranard's a young guy in his second year. He was injured last year, so he played most of the second half on Sunday. But what can he do, as a regular in that spot? Baron Browning's a young guy. He's going to be maybe third choice now, on the depth chart. Oh, yeah. We've just brought in a guy from the Rams as well, haven't we? Whose name is evading me. Let me find out. What's he called? Micah Kaiser, that's the one. So he's, we're having to bring in players now to fill in that depth there. So I think, it's a wait and see on what Justin Stranard and Baron Browning and Kaiser can do. But, linebacker, it was probably the weakest area. Inside linebacker was probably the weakest area on the defense anyway. So right, to lose Josie Jewell, it could be, interesting to see what happens there, how we cope without him.
Yeah, so I mean, that's, I guess, with a very talented defensive backfield that you guys have, obviously with the rookie coming in, Patrick Surtain, you've obviously, and then it goes without saying, you got obviously Von Miller coming off one edge. Unfortunately, you don't have Bradley Chubb. Obviously, that's going to be a big blow. So I guess with one side not quite as good, I'm sure you've got some other guys locked up behind Bradley Chubb, but he's still a big miss. And then obviously with that linebacking core, I guess that's where a team could attack you is in the middle and kind of, keeping some contain on Von from not killing you too much, and then trying to kind of work the middle field. So I guess that's somewhere the Jets could work out if they had a half decent tight end room, which they don't. So I think we can't really, I think we've got really good slot. We've got really good slot people. We've got Elijah Moore can play in the slot, do really good things. Jameson Crowder, Braxton Berrios. We've got a lot of guys who could work it, but the tight end would be useful. But it is what it is. But it's good to know. Let's see what the offensive staff of the Jets have to see with this team and where the weaknesses are. Obviously, with some of the injuries that you've had. In terms of a prediction for the game, in terms of a bold prediction of something that you might think might happen in the game. Do you want to put out something out there so we can kind of see if it comes to fruition on Sunday?
I think from what we've seen so far from this offense, and getting Teddy back at Mile High in front of that crowd's going to be rocking. We've not felt this optimism kind of for a few years now. So I think hopefully Teddy can ride that wave. So I'm going to say that Teddy's going to throw 4 touchdowns. He's thrown 2 in each game so far. So I'm going to say first game at home, he's going to toss 4 touchdowns.
That would be something. That definitely would be something against this, this bend but don't break defense that Salah's got. I don't see it being that high scoring for either team. And so I'm still working out. I think a 16-20 win for the Broncos is what I would go with. I think that's kind of roughly where we're going to have. I think you guys will get the little bit of extra points just on the board, but I think overall it's going to be quite a tight affair. But we'll see. Well, as I said, I at this point, I thought we were going to be, I actually predicted that we beat the Patriots. We just didn't show up, so it is what it is. So
I suppose if we see that Zach Wilson again, it might not.
Well,
be
exactly. If you get that Zach Wilson, then yeah, you would have opportunities to score that many touchdowns if they are able to convert them, unlike the Patriots did, and be able to maybe get those. And if Teddy throws them, then you could be onto something. So that's 4. So Tom's predicting 4 touchdowns thrown by Teddy in the game. So that's interesting. In terms of your score prediction, so I gave you mine as part of the answer. What's your score prediction for the game?
I think from what we've scored 27 and 23 points so far. So we're consistently driving the ball down the field, which makes a change. And the defense isn't giving up much. Hopefully, Vic Fangio's got a good record against young quarterbacks, as maybe not quite as good as Bill Belichick, but I don't think he's far behind. So yeah. I think the Broncos at home, if this was in New York, it may be closer than you would expect the Broncos to get a home bounce. I think I'll go similar to what we've seen so far. I'll go 27-13 Broncos or 27-14.
Right. Okay. So you'll have who's your kicker?
Brandon McManus.
So Brandon will miss 1 extra point then. I guess that makes sense because
if you're
going with 4 touchdowns, then you've got to put Brandon to miss 1, right?
It's going to be 31-13.
Okay, there we go.
I've got to back up my bold prediction now. Thanks for reminding me.
No, it has to align. I know it's like so. See, you're not that. See, it's got it all confused. You're getting a bit too confident. Let's see what happens on Sunday. But
I'm confident that McManus won't miss an extra point. So
no, he's a good kicker. He's a solid kicker, that's for sure. Tom, thanks for jumping on. It's been really good having you. Do you want to shout out? Obviously, I don't know which Jets fans will follow you in terms of, obviously, it's always one of those things where you go, how many fans will I get from this? But it's been really good getting you on. And obviously, some people may want to follow fans around, from UK fans around the NFL. So, you want to shout out what you do, your podcast, your Twitter handle, all that stuff?
Yeah, so we're on Twitter at UK Denver Broncos. We have a weekly podcast, which we put out. You can find it on our Twitter page, Denver Broncos UK. Yeah, that's where you'll find us and interact. Hopefully we'll interact with a few of you throughout Sunday's game. Hopefully we'll get the better of it, but it's always fun to interact with opposition fans during the game.
It definitely is fun, and obviously we'll be chatting on Twitter about this back and forth, and hopefully it's a bit more competitive, so I don't just come off Twitter and say I don't want to deal with it, because that's what it was on Sunday. It's like I don't even want to see what's happening on Twitter in any capacity. So yeah, hopefully I can jump on there and it'll be a bit more fun, back and forth game. So anyway, good luck on Sunday, I guess, to an extent. Let's hope for injury-free football always. That's always hope for every week. So but yeah, not wishing you too much luck for Sunday, but yeah, looking forward to the game. So anyway, with that, we'll wrap it up and we'll head back to me and David. Okay, so we'd like to thank Tom for joining us. And he was a good guest there. Don't really wish him too much luck for Sunday. But yeah, no, thanks for joining us on the pod. David, into our preview for the game. I would like to give you the chance to give us 3 keys to the game for offense, and 3 for defense, for us to kind of like get back and get competitive and maybe even pull off the win on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. So offensively, I think it's going to be really important to establish the run early. I think we did a good job of that against New England, and what you want to do is you want to keep Zach out of those second and longs and third and longs, because if you do that and you allow people like Von Miller to pin his ears back and just get after him, it's going to be a very long day, not only for the offensive line but for Zach as well. And I'm worried about him taking some punishment. So I think it's really key to establish that run game nice and early. Secondly, I think it's really important that we give Zach some really easy, simple throws across the middle. Get him some slants, get him some screens to Von Miller's side, just slow him down a little bit if he's going to come aggressively. Then get someone out behind him, and just allow Zach those easy completions, get in a rhythm. I think that's one thing we've noticed of Zach in at least his first 2 games, and we'll see if this becomes a trend going forward. But he's a bit of a rhythm passer, and if he can get into rhythm early, then I think it's quite important that we, just give him those confidence building throws.
Yeah.
Just get him those easy reads. Let's not, give him in the first drive, a 5-step drop where he's looking 40, 50 yards downfield. It's one way to get sacked. It's another way to force a bad interception. And coming off last week's game, I think it'll be a good idea just to get him those early completions.
Yeah.
And I think the next thing we need to do is obviously Bradley Chubb's out, so that's good. Not good that he's injured, obviously, but it's good for the Jets' offensive line. They don't have to worry about him. So what I want to say, I just want to see the likes of Tyler Croft, the likes of Ryan Griffin. If they're playing, you need to put them on Von Miller's side. You need to make sure that they do chip him. You need maybe a wham block, so get him in the side, get him off his line. Just don't give him that. Don't give him a free run at our tackles, because that's not going to end that well for our tackles. And I think, I was reading he usually lines up against the right tackle because that tends to be the team's weakest tackle. I've got a feeling he might line up against George Fant, because George Fant does struggle a little bit with that outside rush, so the speed rush outside. So I think as long as we can get a tight end on him, I've been really unimpressed with Ryan Griffin and Tyler Croft blocking so far. Yeah. So they've got a big week coming up. You're not going to be able to stop Von Miller. I think if you keep him to 1 sack, a couple of pressures, and a hit, you've done a pretty good job. So those are the 3 keys for me. You're going to have to disrupt Von. You're going to have to give Zach some nice early completions, get him in rhythm, and you're going to need to establish that run game. And I really want to see Michael Carter get in there, because how impressive was he last week?
Yeah, I was really impressed. Like I say, he was my player of the game that I picked out on the recap pod. He was. Yeah, it was the first time we got to see him. Like, he was really the guy that we drafted, and you saw some of that special, that special ability that he's so hard to bring down, hard to kind of get on the ground, and he can find a little bit of space, and the way he kind of gets those little extra yards here or there, that makes a difference. It's just those 2 or 3 extra yards can make all the difference in the NFL. It's such a difficult process just getting the 10 yards sometimes, especially with being a Jets fan. Like, I remember sitting on Sunday, I was kind of re-explaining the yardage thing to my son, and I was like, yeah, we got to get to that yellow line. And he goes, it's not that far. I said, it's further than you think. It's further. Like, trust me, when you're the Jets fan, that 10 yards is really difficult. So yeah, having Michael Carter in there just gets those extra few yards. It makes a big difference.
10 yards isn't long if you're the Buccaneers, but 10 yards is a very long way if you're the Jets.
Absolutely. But no, I think you're right. In terms of having Bradley Chubb out, it makes a big difference, because, with now it's kind of, we lost Mackay and they've lost Chubb, so it kind of gives us ability we can kind of key in. Not that there aren't going to be good NFL quality players, but coming on the other side, but they're not going to be the level of Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. So the fact that we've only got one of them to deal with does give us a kind of we can kind of try and stop him and then deal with what we have to do on the other side. And I think we could do a pretty good job with that. But we just got to get better at, picking up stunts and delayed blitzes and stuff like that. That's for, in terms of my ones I'm kind of picking out. Yeah, delayed blitzes and stunts. like that one has to be kind of picked up because it's just been really really poor. I know it was better against New England, but I think it's still a worry. Like I'm still not confident that it's suddenly going to go away just because like we're not going to steadily improve. Like so until I see a bit more consistency there, that's always going to be a worry. And I just like get manufacturer touches for Elijah Moore, like get the ball in his hands, which is going to make it, if you get easy throws for Zach, get the ball out quickly to Elijah Moore on if it's slants, if it's kind of drag routes, or even kind of in a screen game, just get the ball in Elijah's hands and make him get him out there making the magic that we know he can when he's in the open field. So I think those are going to be the keys. If we can just kind of keep things simple and get the ball out to our playmakers, and keep Zach on a quite get the ball and get the ball out quickly. I think that's going to be the biggest success for our offense. Just keep things kind of pacey and not putting Zach in ridiculous situations. So yeah, for sure. In terms of the defense, 3-pointers that you think we need to have some success on Sunday.
Yeah, so the first one is a Robert Saleh classic, which is no explosive plays. Like, you think about Teddy Bridgewater.
Eliminate explosives.
Eliminate the explosives.
Yeah.
You think about Teddy Bridgewater, and you think historically he's been one of these quarterbacks who's a little bit of a check down arse. He kind of goes with what you give him. This year it's completely different. So I mean, Teddy Bridgewater right now leads the league in 20+ yard passing attempts, which to me is just astounding that he is doing that.
Yeah.
But he is really pushing the ball down the field, and I think that's going to test our cornerbacks a little bit. So the likes of Michael Carr and Brandon Eccles have been tested with a lot of stuff in front of them. They've passed that test with flying colours. Both of them have looked really good. Now they're going to have to turn and run, and let's see how they do on those deeper routes. You've got Cortland Sutton, who I imagine Bryce Hall will take the majority of the time, but you've got people like Tim Patrick as well. Tim Patrick's been pretty decent. We won't have to face Jerry Jeudy, which is another benefit for us.
Yeah, helps. KJ Hamler's good though as well.
They've got a lot of talent. They've got two tight ends that are pretty decent as well.
Yeah.
So they're going to have plenty of talent on show. So eliminate those long plays. The second one is get into their interior offensive line. And I'm really reluctant to say this because we spoke about this before Carolina, about how dodgy the interior of Carolina's line was against our formidable interior defensive line.
Yeah.
And it didn't really work out. But if you look at Denver's interior offensive line, it's been pretty poor. They were getting pushed back by Jacksonville, and Jacksonville aren't renowned for having an amazing defensive line. So they've got a couple of people in there that you can really exploit. And I'm talking about Dalton Risner, who's their left guard, and their center Lloyd Cushenberry.
Yeah,
I think both of those guys can be liable to get pushed back, especially in the run game. So if we can get Quinnen and get Sheldon and get Foley in there and just really push that back into Teddy's face. They've got Melvin Gordon, they've got Javonte Williams. They've got a lot of talent in terms of running the football, but they haven't run the ball that well so far.
No.
So that's going to be quite key. And my third one is get off the field on third down. So, I mean, Teddy Bridgewater, I was looking at his passer rating under pressure today because I thought, where can we get him? That's not going to really get him because he's got 121.9 passer rating under pressure with a completion of 78.6. So, I mean, he's performing higher than his career averages. And I think he's pressured on 34% of his dropback. So he's pretty good. But against Jacksonville, they're only 2 of 11 on third down. And I mean, that has been consistent against the Giants as well. Their third down completion, their fourth down completion is fantastic. I think they've had like 4 for 4. But their third down completion, that's where you need to get off the field. So you don't want the Jets defense getting into these long, grueling drives, which we saw a little bit of. And they'll get tired and, Zach turns the ball over, gets the defense on the field quickly again. That's going to be quite interesting. So I think get off the field on third downs is going to be key. I'm really intrigued about our linebackers. I mean, I don't know what you feel about our linebackers at the minute, but CJ Mosley, I think, started the season really, really well.
Yeah.
But outside of
PDF,
CJ, you've kind of got...
PPF don't like him, though.
No, I mean, I don't understand that. That is, I called that out on Twitter the other day because we watched the game, we watched all 22, and CJ was all over the field. I actually looked at PFF after watching that and saw that he had been rated like a 51 or something like, which is awful. Yeah. I was like, where did it's all judgment at the end of the day. But linebacker wise, kind of Hamza's been a little bit invisible. Haven't really seen him much.
Mm.
Jamie Sherwood was obviously out week 2. They expect him to get him back this week. Quincy Williams had a big hit, but big hits make nice highlights, but they don't kind of stop drives. So, I mean, what do you think about our linebackers this week?
I think we'll be okay. I think that they'll be, with CJ on the field being the kind of the general that he is, and then with the coaching they've got, I think they'll be okay. I think it's really important in terms of that unit, in terms of really making sure that they clog up the holes in the running game, making sure that we really do make and we continue to make their offense one-dimensional. I know Teddy's been doing really well with that one dimension, but if you bring in if you start having a good running game on top of what Teddy's been doing, then it's gonna be a very long day. So I think we've got to continue to kind of keep it packed. Don't let Javonte or Melvin Gordon get any success, and then we have to implement what you said in terms of trying to stop Teddy. So yeah, in terms of the linebacking core, I think they'll be okay. It's not ideal. The people out there, you would like a bit more pedigree next to CJ. I think we'll get that when Jared Davis comes in. I think he was probably primed to be pretty good next to CJ. And then we'll have to see what the young guy Sherwood comes back, if he takes that pace of Hamza there in the three in the middle on that second level. So I think going back to your second point about the defensive tackles and that that push. What's your feelings on Quinnen? Because people have been saying he's been quiet, he hasn't shown up. They obviously are not on the stat sheet, but there's also people who are probably invested in still they're still fans of it. Sometimes it can be a bit delusional. So sometimes you get people kind of like finding every little thing that's positive about him. When you've looked at the film, what's your feelings about Quinnen overall the first 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think when I watched the actual game in real time, so the main coverage, I was pretty disappointed because I didn't really see him. When you kind of watch the all 22 footage, so the coaches film on Game Pass, I think that's where you start to realize he's doing a lot more than you think he is. So he is taking up blockers. He is pushing people into the backfield. He is getting, he's just rerouting people as well. So if he gets the push into the lane of the running back has to cut back to the other side, and then Sheldon Rankins has got himself a tackle, or John Franklin Myers has got himself a tackle. So it's stuff that doesn't show up in the stat sheet, and there is going to come a time where you're going to want him to start getting those sacks. You're going to want to see him getting tackles for losses, shedding his block and getting into the backfield and bringing them down. So I don't think he's been as good as he is capable of being, but I also don't think he's been as bad as maybe I thought he'd been. I was quite critical of him last week. And even after this week, after watching the game, when we reacted on Monday, I was kind of like, didn't mention Quinnen because I didn't think he'd done anything. But he actually does do a lot more once you actually get into watching the game film from the All-22, just because you get a better view of how the play's designed and kind of what he's doing to impact the play. So it's interesting because you want him getting those sacks, you want him getting the tackles for losses, you want him making these highlight reel plays and disrupting and making kind of momentum shifting plays, and he hasn't done that yet. But he is making fundamentally good plays. He is making some really good plays for his teammates, which is part of why you work as a unit.
Yeah.
But there's more to come from him. I'd be disappointed if this is what we expect from Quinnen Williams.
No, you expect him in this, what we were hoping in this scheme, that he would be unlocked and he would be a beast. Kind of similar to what we saw last year, building off even last year's impressive second year. Do you think that the foot surgery, the foot issue that he had and recovering and coming back for that in training camp, he's kind of still getting back to 100% still while he's on the field still, like kind of working himself back into form?
Yeah, potentially. He doesn't seem to have the same power that he's had historically. So your power, they always say, it comes from your lower half, it comes from your base. So his injury potentially has impacted that. But I guess only Quinnen's going to know how much it's impacted him, and if it still is, or if it's just he missed some time in preseason, so he's just behind other people. It's going to be interesting to see how he goes this week, because this is another really good opportunity for him. They don't have, like we were saying, they don't have that interior offensive line that's going to make you worry. They don't have a Quinton Nelson or anyone like that. They are there for the taking. So let's another opportunity. Week 3. How long can you kind of use the preseason for? 3-4 weeks. Yeah, it's time for him to start making some big plays, and he's going to want to get paid soon. So he needs to have those big plays in his resume.
Yeah, we got to have a definitive answer, but not again with this. It's like you can't have another Leonard Williams situation where it's like, oh, he's really good, he does all this extra work, but and then you're like, but how do we judge his value? Like, really, like, is he worth this much money? He wants this much money. He's not. Like, it'd be good if he just came out and was like, at least put together kind of a consistent, piece of like play over the course of a season and over the course of a couple of seasons, so you can see that trend and have confidence in giving him that second contract. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think we definitely need him to kind of show up in these games if we're going to have any upsets. We've got some difficult opponents coming up next couple of weeks, especially. So if we are going to put off one of these upsets in the next couple of weeks and avoid going to London 0-4, we're going to need people like Quinnen to really come up and like do even more and really kind of wreck someone's game plan for a game. Which we know he can. We know he's got the ability to do so. So it's time for him to show up now, and I think we definitely need him. So I think I'll wrap it up for the previews. We're very excited. We're only a few days away now from the game. Get a good chance to kind of brush ourselves off and get back into the next game. Forget that game that happened last week and just look forward to the next game. David, is there anything you want to shout out? Any of your work that you're doing on Gangrene Nation? Anything you want to say to the listeners?
I'm going to put something out. It will be out by the time you listen this on Van Roten, just about his lack of performance last week and his lack of performance actually for the last 5 years. So, look out for that.
A dossier on Van Roten.
I mean, he's still got a job, which is, fair play to him. The lack of depth the Jets has got behind him is probably a reason why he's got a little bit more leash than he probably should have. Obviously, Cam Clark got this season-ending injury, and Dan Feeney is Dan Feeney. Yeah. So, he's not going to be pushing him too hard. But, if the Jets want to hope to improve as an offensive line, they have to strengthen their weakest component, and at the moment it looks like Van Roten is definitely their weakest component. So I'm going to put something out there later today, so that'll be there for you. I wrote a little something on Braxton Berrios earlier because we all love Braxton. So yeah,
kind of. Some people, people are so angry that he's like, the position that he's getting all the production. You're like, the guy's getting the production and he's doing a good job. He's catching the balls that are thrown to him. What would you want from him? I think it's the situation people understand is like, when Jamison Crowder comes back, that's probably the Jamison Crowder role. So if you see it that way, then you say, oh, he's deputized well for Crowder while he's been out, and hopefully that will be Crowder who's just got that little bit extra, hasn't he, to kind of make a bit more out of those plays than Braxton. But no, he's been doing well. So. Check out David's work at Gangrene Nation. He'll obviously post it. Follow him on his Twitter account, which you can find all our personal Twitter accounts on the Jets UK pod bio on Twitter. We're a few days away from the game. It's kind of going to be, let's see. It's going to be difficult going to Denver, but I think, we can make a game of it. That's what we want. Just make a game of it. Let's not be a laughing stock. Let's not, have people making jokes and stuff. Let's just play a game and try and win it. And if we don't, we've at least got a few things to move forward from and put as positives. That's all I can really hope at this point, which is, I guess it's just the life of a Jets fan, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Small improvements. That's all we're looking for this year.
Small improvements, and for Zach to really bounce back and have a solid game, that would be delightful. It really would be. So, guys, enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the game on Sunday, and we'll see you after the game.